Let's keep this moving, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? The next guest really needs no introduction. Many of you became aware of this highly talented expert during the COVID-19 protests. He captured all of the action. At times, there were thousands upon thousands of people witnessing the horror that transpired on the streets of Victoria. Thank you to this man. He was pepper sprayed more times than I would like to remember, but his resolute was unwavering. Please make him feel welcome, Rukshan Fernando. Take a seat.
It's almost midnight.
That's crazy. Everyone is basically here for you, Rukshan.
Yeah? Are they not here for Avi?
Oh, wait, where's Avi? Rukshan, talk to us. It's been a wild ride. You developed a very large following online, really, because I think your content was very unique during, say, 2020, 2021. You were doing something that very few people actually in the world were doing. You were live streaming continuously for hours upon hours on end, these protests that took place in Melbourne, so that anyone who was effectively confused by, say, the mainstream narrative or the general reporting at the time, right, could actually look up your broadcast and find out what happened. Would you mind talking a little bit about what motivated you to capture these protests in the length and detail of which you did?
Yeah, I guess what's sad about what I did, I'm saying sad because what I did was very simple, just point the camera and film something. It was probably the easiest thing that anyone could do, and the fact that these media organizations that have access to all this equipment, millions of dollars and all this kind of technology, couldn't do something so simple during that time. They refused to do things like this. Just really goes to show you the power of technology that we have today, the ordinary person, what we can do if we just point our camera and film something. So I think I just did something very simple and very basic, but it just happened to cut across because the media weren't doing it, and they weren't doing it intentionally. It wasn't because they couldn't do it, it was very intentional. And I think that's very depressing and sad, to be honest, because this is what you see in third world countries, in the developing world. We get these videos from people's phones that we see of disastrous things happening in their country. We don't see it from their media stations, we see it from mobile phones. And here it is happening in Australia. People are watching what's happening in their country on Rukshan's live stream. It's completely ridiculous, but that is what it was. And I don't think it was anything remarkable, but in many ways I feel like it's a very sad indictment on our media in this country.
Yeah, most definitely, and I agree with your sentiments on that. And there were mainstream media corporations from around the world that were pulling clips from your footage and playing those clips on television. Now, you sustained injuries, I would say, during the course of your filming. I recall several instances where you were pepper sprayed quite severely, yet that did not seem to discourage you from picking up your camera, dusting yourself off, and capturing the protests the next day. Would you mind talking a little bit about why you held the commitment to capturing the, let's just say, action on the ground despite the adversity that you faced throughout that process?
Yeah, sure. Look, the first time that I actually went physically out to a protest was at the Shrine, I think October 2020. And I haven't told this story to anyone, but I got there very early before, a lot of the protesters showed up. I went there very early because I live very close in the city. And I was approached by the police, and they started talking to me, asking me what I'm doing, obviously. That's what they were doing. And I was physically shaking during that time. I'm embarrassed to talk about it, but that's what happened to me. And after they spoke to me, I felt at that moment, how dare these people speak like this? And this is not the country that I believe I live in, and I'm not going to let them do this to me. And then from that moment on, when they started coming to my house over and over, all that kind of stuff, that actually just built up my resolve to actually tell me that I'm doing the right thing. And that's why I kept going out, because what they were doing was wrong. The fact that they were just attacking people on the street, spraying journalists and all this kind of stuff. Of course, if you're a legitimate journalist, you have to go back out. We celebrate that type of journalism. We send people off to other countries, war journalists, whatever it is, that's what they go do. So if you're not going to go out there and do that, you might as well not do this type of work. You know, you might as well just stay at home if you really believe that you're an independent journalist or whatever it is. So I couldn't stop myself from going.
And I respect that entirely. I think that deserves an extra round, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so, yeah, there's so many questions that I would like to ask you, and of course we have a limited time frame. When I think back to the protest, it was a very crazy time. Of course, it was very volatile. There was a huge amount of risk involved. And to add to the previous comments you made, when the Real Rukshan on Facebook is pulling numbers that were dwarfing the mainstream media coverage, all right, dwarfing the mainstream media coverage, I think that was enough evidence that the mainstream media was not doing their job, and we had people like Avi as well from Rebel News and Rukshan really standing up and carrying that torch. Now that things have calmed down a bit, and of course we never hope for the scenes of which we witnessed throughout the past few years to return, I've noticed a trend, I would say, with the type of people that follow your content, my content, falling into what I just loosely described as being black-pilled, feeling very depressed, feeling that there's no hope, and many people, as a result of this, are no longer enjoying their lives. I know that you have an interesting perspective on this topic. I was just hoping you could share your thoughts with us.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of it's by design. Government, media, they want us to feel this way. I think it's been discussed at length today that a lot of this is by design. And what I feel the right thing to do is, whether it's, you know, topics that we're discussing, the disinformation bill, The Voice, all of these things, you know, we have an opportunity to change that narrative. And the work that I do today, obviously there's no lockdowns, there's none of this kind of stuff for me to live stream. But for me, my challenge is to challenge the mainstream media. You know, when I say things like defund the ABC, I actually mean defund the ABC. Because, because these organizations, you know, the network televisions, they are doing a great disservice to our country. They are not allowing people to debate and discuss ideas. This thing with The Voice, these things should be debated in the community, and our media stations, particularly the ABC, who is funded by the taxpayer, should be out there getting everyone's point of view. They should not be supporting one particular narrative, which is what they're doing now. And I think that's disgusting, because they're taking all our money to do that, and it's up to independent media, citizen journalists, what you're doing today, Morgan. This has to be the future that challenges these people, because the corporate media is not going to do it. So I think this is how we change that around. And by doing these things, having these type of events, people tuning into independent content creators and watching this content, then you don't have to be black-pilled or whatever. You can share these perspectives and get different ideas. Again, I think it's very sad and unfortunate that we have to do these things, but that is just how it is. And you know, Australia, there's an opportunity for any of us that want to be in that position to do that. But you know, it's challenging, but we have to do it. Is my view.
I agree with that. We have to do it. There's no option. If regular people don't stand up and speak the very obvious truth, well, we can't count on Channel 9 to do that job for us, can we? So I'd like to ask your opinion, Rukshan, for people out there in the general public maybe feeling that they have a voice, something to contribute, looking to get started in the independent media space, maybe they have some reservations. What advice would you give to people like that?
Yeah, I think just do it, because three years ago, August 1st, about 3 years ago, is when I started my page, The Real Rukshan. And I was just making memes and doing content and stuff like this, right? Just making fun of Daniel Andrews. Because it wasn't very hard to do that. It was very easy to do that.
Easy.
But just putting yourself out there, like I've looked at myself from when I started to today, and I don't think at the start I would have had the confidence to be up here and, you know, speaking like this. But over time, I've built that. I've learned from people around me. You know, you just got to do it and put yourself out there. And I think a lot of people don't think that they have a interesting story or interesting message to share. But a lot of the times, the most interesting things I heard was from people on the street. Like the stories that people were telling me were so interesting. And you can share that, and we have the platforms to do that. I know there's censorship, and I know that's a big issue. But if you keep fighting against it, you can push back. There is people like Elon Musk. I know people have different viewpoints on these type of people, but there are opportunities there because of what's happening overseas to make headwinds into these spaces and have our voices heard. So I think don't be afraid. This thing with the censorship, misinformation, disinformation bill, I agree with everything that's been said here, particularly by Ralph Babette. This is the most dangerous thing, and they're trying to shut down people like me. They are terrified of independent content creators. They are terrified of just ordinary people speaking, but they are also mostly terrified of people who have influence, who are not controlled by corporations and by these media people. This bill is designed to shut them out. They're not worried about just you and a friend just having a chat on Messenger or something like this. They're worried about people like myself or Avi Yemeni cutting across the mainstream media and challenging their narratives, because that's what they cannot control and stop. And they saw that happening during COVID, and they saw how everyone switched off from them, and they want to shut it down, because the next time that something like this happens, whether it's climate hoax or whatever it is, they want to control the message 100%. And if there's anything that I'm willing to go back on the street for, protest, live stream, whatever it is protest against this crazy disinformation, misinformation crap that they're trying to shove down our throats from Canberra. Because these people have no respect for you. They have no respect for the future, and they're just trying to control every single thing that they possibly can.
Yeah, I agree. And Rukshan has hit the nail on the head in regards to this bill. This bill warrants a mass protest to the likes of the numbers we saw, if not bigger. The risk to our freedom is huge. So if you're willing to get the word out there and to talk to your friends, then I'd be willing to be involved in the organisation of such an event. And I think Harrison might be interested as well. Now, Rukshan, allow me to ask you, first of all, thanks for having me on your podcast yesterday along with Avi. I had a great time. We had a really interesting conversation, and everybody should check out the Opposition podcast. The setup that Rukshan has is it's world class, and it's been a real pleasure to see your independent media platform evolve and develop, and to also see you develop as a true commentator. What does the future hold for yourself?
Look, I'm just putting myself out there. I'm doing what I think that needs to be done. Many people would know that I'm also a wedding photographer. I'm not doing a business pitch here. A lot of my trolls will bring up the fact that I'm a wedding photographer to put me down. This is why they do this. I've had politicians put me down, call me a wedding photographer. People try to put down people who are a part of the working class, that entrepreneurs that do businesses. This is all by design that they try to do this. But why I'm saying this is because I decided, to go down that path when I, stopped doing my law degree. And today, I've decided, not today, but very recently when I started doing this podcast and stuff, I'm in a position as a wedding photographer, because of the career that I've managed to build, to pause that in such a way that I can, focus also on doing my independent journalism and creating something that I'm really proud of, and that I think people around might want to join in and watch. Right? That's what I'm doing, and collaborating with Avi Yemeni from Rebel News and other people like yourself. That's all a part of the experience for me, and the future that I see myself doing is something that I'm committed to. So if you see me doing this work and making these videos, I'm not just doing it on the side anymore while I'm doing weddings. I'm committed to it, and I'm doing it in a way that I really want to challenge the mainstream media companies in this country, because I can't stand them. I cannot stand them.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why each and every one of us need to support Rukshan's work to the full extent of our capability to get the word out there. Rukshan's voice alone is not enough. He needs the support of the general public to share his content, to get the word out there, to provide a countermeasure to the very destructive mainstream narratives that have plagued our country for too long. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up one more time for Rukshan Fernando.
Thanks, bro.
Ladies and